Welcome back to another episode of the Terptalk podcast. Well, it's time to look back on what's been a interesting year for the Terps across the board. And in the athletic department, Jordan and I take a look at all things Terps 2025 and look ahead to 2026. We also catch up on football news in the portal and men's and women's basketball on the court. This podcast is brought to you by VinerX. Your business deserves technology that works as hard as you do. VinerX brings your business enterprise technology that is human first. VinerX aligns technology with your goals, giving you productivity, reliability, and the freedom to scale. Tools that let you thrive. With VinerX, IT isn't a cost center, it's an investment in your future. Learn more at VinerX.com. Welcome into another episode of the Terptalk podcast. Jordan, it's a little doom and gloom around, but there's some bright spots, and we got a year in review today.
Yes, we do, and Happy New Year to those who are listening. The very earliest to be listening on New Year's Eve, so I think it still applies. Yeah, what a turbulent year for the Turtles, Mason, and we will talk about that plenty. But first, it's been a while since we've been since our last show, excuse me. And frankly, not much has changed, except in the one area that a lot of people care about right now, which is football retention.
Yeah, the Terps, they're hot right now when it comes to the portal. They retain a handful of players that are key to the team going forward. They did lose Lakai Rowland over the weekend and Dylan Fontes today to the portal. I think overall, Jordan, it's about as good as it could be. I know Fontes is a loss just with his leadership, being a captain on the team in the locker room, winning the inaugural Jackie Robinson Community Leadership Award from the Big Ten. Not a guy you'd love to see go into the portal, but not totally unexpected when it came to some of the reports from our friends over at Inside the Black and Gold, as well as just some rumblings that had come up. There was some uncertainty around where he would really fit in. Is he an interior defensive lineman? He struggled in those spots throughout his career at Maryland. And then there's just no room in this edge rotation, even for a guy that can stop the run with D.D. Holmes and Nasir Taylor hopefully being retained. Nothing finalized there, but I wouldn't be surprised if both of those guys are back as of right now. The role seemingly was shrinking with what Maryland was looking for in the portal, but you hate to lose this kind of guy in the locker room. I mean, he spent 3 years, played all 3 years, wrapped it up as a captain. You're just not really finding guys like that from the portal. So it's tough in some ways, but also not completely unexpected in others, just with the way this unit has struggled to stop the run in conference play.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good summary. I actually didn't know about that till just now, Mason. But to your point, I mean, he's a tough guy to lose as far as a person, but ultimately, unfortunately, and it's been the topic of the week, this is the dollars and cents games in college sports now. And frankly, he's a senior, and there's no playing time here really on the defensive line. You can always use more guys, but he wasn't going to play a significant role in all likelihood. And there's other players we need to pay. And if you're looking for a paycheck, which you can't blame anybody, especially in his position where he's probably not going pro, for trying to squeeze any dollars you can out of this, we got a long list of needs in the portal, Mason. And I don't think we had much more money to spend on the defensive line.
I think there is money along the defensive line for that. I think it's going to be mostly spent on kind of doubling Cam Rice's up and finding guys that can fill that gap. And where I think you're looking right now is you have kind of two guys, maybe a third you could take, kind of some playing time from, maybe like Cedric Smith or more, makes a little bit more of a jump, and they can fit into like fourth and short situations and be that kind of fifth guy. But I think right now you have two guys that you're solid on in the middle between Jenkins and Thomas, and you got to find two more. And I think that's going to be the defining factor for this defense right now. It's not really anything on the back end. It's can they find a middle of the defense that can sustain this pass rush, and then retain some of this talent across the board that just keeps the roster full. Like, can you keep a guy like Scruggs as a depth piece? Obviously, shopping in the portal for somebody to play along beside Delhomme. I feel like there's a handful of focus areas right now, and it's wide receiver, it is safety, interior defensive line, and then offensive line. I think that's really it. Some of these places, your high school recruiting is just gonna have to show through, which I think is going to be the case in the tight end room. He's now brought in a total of 6 guys over 2 classes. They got to produce.
Yeah, that tight end room will be something to watch. And we'll be back soon. The portal officially opens next week, which is something that I feel like comes a little bit late this year with the new rules, but this is better for the sport. I think anybody can agree with that as well. Mason, on the basketball court, since it is winter break, not many non-revs, actually no non-revs to talk about. On the basketball court, on the men's side, I don't think anything has frankly changed in the last 2 weeks since we last broadcasted. Terps did play better than expected against Virginia, losing 80-72 to the, I think, number 19 now ranked Wahoos, and put together an okay showing. And I do just mean okay. I know the score was better than that, but I didn't feel super confident in the game over against Old Dominion, which the Terps won 73-48 on Sunday, Mason. I mean, like in my professional opinion, semi-professional, whatever you want to call this team's not good.
I know, and well, it was for half the game on Sunday. And the Terps started off super strong. Isaiah Watts contributes more than I think we've seen him contribute, but almost all of it comes in the first half. The lineup changes, I like them, but ultimately, I think you're looking at a team that does not have a center at the moment, and it's just been underwhelming in every facet of the game. The guard play, while somewhat improved, and the overall team for play has actually been improved. But it's just not enough. They're too far away from where they want to be right now. The shooting isn't there. The defense, again, another spot where it's improved, but it's just not where you would hope you would be at this point in the season. And the overall outlook, Jordan, is pretty ugly. And when I speak about doom and gloom, it's really about this. And I'm struggling. You could put up 10 wins in conference, and you're going to be on the outside looking in. And that seems to be kind of far off. But you can only beat the teams in front of you. You play a bad Oregon team at Xfinity on Friday night, and you got to win that game. You got to get things trending in the right direction, stack wins here, and just kind of hope that the team can continue to progress and that there are pieces that you can move on to next year with, and that there's some hope inside of Xfinity, at least into the later half of the month of January, going into February. And it might all fall apart, but you would hope that you could kind of build something and start to move the ball forward.
Yeah, I mean it's bleak to your point, Mason, that conference play hasn't really even started yet, and we're already like, oh, this is over. And I cannot recall I'm sure it's happened, but I cannot recall a season quite like that where you're just at this point you're just like, man, this team just cooked. And look, I'd love to be wrong. I think we both would love to be wrong. We'd love to see somebody step up, be a game changer. But it really does feel like right now, and again, this could change, but it does feel like right now you need so many things to change for this team to be competitive, really in Big Ten play. That feels unattainable. Like we're not looking for one or two guys to break out here. We were looking for, I mean, realistically, Mason, you're probably looking at like what 3 players hitting another level at this point to really feel like you have a shot. And that's
Yeah,
not going to happen in all likelihood.
yeah, it's not, and there's kind of two ways that this could start going in the right direction. One is Pharrell Payne comes back, and him and Solomon Washington, you kind of get the front court that you're looking for, and it helps things out on the back end, and you can sort of bring Elijah Saunders in off the bench, similar to what they did against Michigan, where they were in good position in that game. The other thing is, what's going on with the guards, right? We saw Darius Adams and Watts mainly take the main pieces of that, and then kind of Hoyt really not have a big role. And I think that's kind of what's going to look like going the rest of the way here. Is look, he's just too much of a liability on the defensive end, and when you don't have a center, he can't contribute enough to the rebounding effort as well. And then if you look down, it's like I felt like we left Vegas with a lot of hope for like a guy like Alston being able to come on and be a part of the rotation. That's seemingly far off at this point. Same thing goes for like Colin Metcalf. I don't believe that he's really, frankly, playable for much more than 5 minutes a game at this in this moment, and this is kind of it for him. So you're kind of cutting your losses there. It's just like you're in a spot where there's just not a lot out there. Like Turkson's playing power forward. I just It's just not great.
No, it's not. And that was one of the not we don't like harping on individual players, but that was one of the moments where I really was just like, oh, this we're not coming back as a season. I mean, is when you know either Solo or Elijah Saunders came out, and Turkson was the first guy off the bench, and even against Old Dominion, I was like, this dude is not a power forward. He is not going to contribute a meaningful amount this season at this level, at least this year. And I mean, you're putting George Truxton on against these big guys from Purdue and Michigan State. I mean, Mason, we're looking at getting just clobbered in these games unless we get some great performances.
Yeah, and I think that we can produce some of them. It's just, without the best player in the team, we're completely at a spot where we need games like that, and we kind of need games like that with Pharrell out there. But you would just hope that you can, again, some of these guys can get better here down the stretch, and you can compete and win some of these games, especially at home, and see where you end up.
Well, Mason, on the women's side, things are better, significantly so, actually. The Terps advanced to 14-0 on the season with an absolute clobbering of Wisconsin, 97-59 at Xfinity Center, Mason. Despite the injuries this team has incurred, I mean, other players are stepping up, kind of what we just said. Um, Okawana, the transfer from Duke, who was ACC Sixth Player of the Year last year, puts up 28 points, 10 or 15 from the field, Mason. And I mean, like, we were cautiously optimistic. We were even more cautiously optimistic after the injuries started to hit. But honestly, as of right now, there's no reason not to think that this team can't win the Big Ten.
Yeah, and I think Jordan, you mentioned a couple pieces here, and it's players like Addie Mack playing great. Sailor Poffenberger's found another gear and is looking like a player that's on the WNBA draft radar at this point. And they've just gotten the development that they needed, and some of the help from the portal that would take to kind of sustain this team. And look, at this point, Bree McDaniel's not coming back this season. She's out for the remainder of it. It looked like she might be able to get back on the court around this time, but I think she's ultimately making the right move for her. And there's a lot of weapons on the floor, and they're starting to kind of gel together as a team. And I think this is a spot where the easier schedule for them in the non-conference kind of helped out. Obviously, they get the marquee win over a really good Kentucky team early, but they kind of escaped the South Carolinas and UConns and some of those games that have been really kind of reality checking at some points over the past couple of years. And while we've won our share of them, as a whole, we have not really been great in those games. Um, I think we're going to miss having that competition come March, but look, this league is plenty good. That's why we're able to kind of move off of that, and then we're able to find a way to get those wins in Puerto Rico, which do look good on the resume. But the real challenge is going to start with the conference play. It's not necessarily not really to knock them as this may sound, but look, Wisconsin's not one of the better teams in this league. They haven't been historically, and we're going to get our share of challenges here in the next coming weeks, and it kind of starts with Indiana, who will come in for a 20th anniversary championship celebration for the 2006 women's championship team here on the 4th, and then kind of go from there with conference play.
Yeah, we will find out pretty soon, Mason. But for now, the vibes are good on that side of the college program. Keep it that way. I mentioned to you before the show, we didn't have any big non-revenues, excuse me. We do have one that I know is near and dear to your heart, which is the men's lacrosse schedule came out last week.
Yeah, it did, and it's nothing you wouldn't expect. Talk about a team that plays the best teams every year, anytime, any place. This is one of them, and I mean there may not be a weak game on the schedule. Delaware probably the weakest, but they do travel to Newark to play the I was going to call them the Blue Ducks, but they're the Blue Hens, and that's on a Friday night. You look at who they again. You have your Princeton, your Syracuse, Notre Dame, Virginia. It is really the gauntlet of gauntlets when it comes to the sport. The one thing I would have loved to see on here, Jordan, is a Friday Monday combo, even if it was against two teams that aren't great, just to get that rep in of what championship weekend's like, where we've kind of not been able to, quite shut the door on some of these titles. I would have loved to see that, but that's just not the way Coach Tillman's going to cut it. He is the master when it comes to this. this team, it should be there on Memorial Day hoisting the trophy. It's easy to say that about this program every year, year in, year out, but I feel like this is one of the better ones that we've seen recently, and it should be right there. And it's going to play the schedule. It's going to prepare them to do that. And of course, the league, there's not a better one in lacrosse when it comes to the Big Ten. And they're going to have their challenge trying to kind of get back to winning the tournament championship there and coming with hardware.
Indeed, and we will be with lacrosse, or at least Wayne and Mason will. Lacrosse is not my favorite sport, but it's okay. They like it enough for the whole Terptalk network. Um, in other news, women's lacrosse this year plays at CQ Stadium while their complex is being renovated. So a change of pace on that one. We will see how that shakes out for them. Mason, let's talk about 2025 for the Terps. A turbulent year with a lot of highs and a lot of lows, to say the least. Let's start this out, Mason. In your opinion, what was the biggest story of 2025 for the Terps?
Yeah, I think the biggest story, unfortunately, is probably the Kevin Willard saga. And just because it made national news, it was all over the place. And frankly, it was ugly. It was ugly for everybody involved. It was ugly for the university. It was ugly for obviously the Lake program, with Damon Evans jumping ship right after, right before, after, during, um, and and then Willard and his just really poor performance during March Madness when he had a team that really could have made a deep run into the tournament. And it did make the second weekend. It was a successful year for Maryland basketball, especially if you look at their postseason success recently. It was just a shame that it kind of put this cloud over what was a really, really great, basically five-man team. And I think that it was just sad. It was a sad ending to not a really expected era of Maryland basketball. And it made everybody look bad, mainly Kevin Willard, but
Yeah,
it did look bad.
I mean, there's no comparison or anything in my mind. The Kevin Willard story, combined with the Damon Evans piece of it, was probably the second biggest story of my fandom as a Maryland fan. Um, it was tough, and it was to Mason's point, a real damper on what was a really exceptional season for the Terps. I mean, the team was ranked as high as, I think, did we crack the top 10, Mason?
I don't think so.
If we didn't, it was really close. I remember the Michigan State game, it was a borderline top 10 matchup, if not a top 10 matchup. But it was a really good season. It was really fun to watch. I mean, that was a really likable team to follow and a really good team to watch with Juju, Reese, DQ, Jacoby Gillespie, and the gang. Um, and it's a shame it ended the way it did. I am not of the belief, and I know there's a lot of Maryland fans that have said this. I really don't know if they could beat in Florida. I think Florida was a really, really good team. I mean, they won the championship, obviously. But they were in that game, and it did feel like we kind of wavered there. Um, and it's a shame the way things ended. I really thought we were getting somewhere with Kevin Willard and what he was trying to accomplish here, but we're never going to know. And the Damon Evans piece of him leaving too was just bizarre to witness. I mean, that truly did not feel real at certain points. All right, Mason, Terp Athlete of the Year for you.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Derek Queen. Um, just the impact that he's had, his play into the NBA season now, and the fact that there's the guy that a lot of people want to be like as they grow up in this area, and they grow up being a Maryland fan or being around Maryland, and they want to play at Maryland, and they see that can put them not only on the map but into a spot where you're putting it together an NBA Rookie of the Year campaign now. You finished the time at Maryland exceptionally, and with a lot of big moments that are going to be on the hype video for a long, long time. And I think that he's that guy.
That is a good one. Um, it's hard to beat Derek Queen. Hmm. I might say a GK from the men's soccer team. I mean, Derek Queen is probably the right answer, but I feel we can't agree on everything. And GK number 77 for the Maryland soccer team, the Big Ten Player of the Year for the best men's soccer team we've seen in College Park in a better part of a decade now. Now, granted, Derek Queen is probably the right answer again. He was one of the better Maryland rookies we've seen, at least in our lifetime. A Baltimore native. But stuff on GK and those Terps did make it to the Elite Eight, Big Ten regular season championship. I'll give them a shout out here, but again, Derek Queen's probably the right answer. All right, Mason. Here's one that I think I'm going to know your answer already, but I'm going to ask it. Best Maryland team of 2025.
It was probably, I mean, if you look at games, right, it's the men's lacrosse team that falls one game short of the championship. I think it's the Maryland men's soccer team, though. The unbeaten regular season that they were able to find, or no regulation loss regular season they were able to come away with, and even into the run to the tournament, they would beat two good teams in North Carolina and UConn. They fall short against the eventual national champions in Washington, who they did beat during the regular season. And I just think they were the best. They put together the best campaign overall.
That's a pretty good answer. And I might agree with you, although lacrosse is a hard one not to pick just because they did make the championship weekend yet again. And they had some great players. I mean, oh, that's a tough one. I mean, if you want to say most impactful, you'd say men's basketball. You can make an argument. You know what, Mason? I'm going to say Trevor women's basketball from March. An Elite Eight appearance, a great regular season, and a game that they should have beaten South Carolina in the Elite Eight. And if anyone watched that, they really should have won that game. I'll give it to them. I think that team kind of got lost in the shuffle with how well the men's team played, and then even with lacrosse right afterwards. I mean, and the fact they didn't actually beat South Carolina, if they made the Final Four, I think we'd all be singing a different tune right now. But that team overall, in terms of front to back talent, I'm going to pick as the best team of the year. Mason, this was also a year, we can do superlatives, but this was also a year of major disappointment in a lot of ways. What was, and this is a tough one, you might need a minute, most disappointing loss of 2025?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, it's the game against Cornell in Foxborough. I think that I really was a believer in John Tillman's team. I thought that they had all the makings of it. I thought they had a good matchup against Cornell, but ultimately Goldstein and Karst were too good for them on that day, and we just weren't able to cap off what I feel like would have really been a huge moment for Logan McNaney and for his career. I think that would have cemented him as one of the best goalies to play the game in the modern era, just over a 4-year span, or 4 playing years, being able to compete for 4 national championships in those years, and being able to win 2 of them, and really would have been excellent fashion. But we fall short of that. That took it away from me.
I was surprised you didn't say Logan McNaney was your Terp of the year when we were going through that one. There's so many choices. I'm going to throw a couple honorable mentions here. The men's soccer game against Washington is definitely one for me. That was a team that I really did feel like was destined to at least make the Final Four, if not win the whole thing. And they just fell flat in the second half of that game. I would say the women's lacrosse lost to Penn. I really felt like was one they should have won back in the spring. And Mason's point, the men's lacrosse against Cornell. I do have to go to the basic answer here, though. And I will say that Washington football game was probably the low point of the year for me. And I'm a huge Maryland basketball fan. But I was okay with the Kevin Willard situation because they got something out of it. They made the Sweet 16. They had a really good, exciting year. But that football win, and all things considered, or loss rather, really felt like one that just changed the entire course of the season. And possibly the Loxa era, which is still going on, so it's hard to say that. But it really felt like that was the one that, like, okay, you win this and you're getting somewhere. You might be ranked, you're playing a team you can beat next week. You're playing UCLA after that. And it feels like that was a real domino effect type of game. And also, and Mason can preach on this one, I mean, the experience of watching that game, for me, was one of the most just tragic experiences of my Maryland fandom career. With all, and I mean that, with all the bull poop we've gone through as fans, that was one for the cakes where you just felt like we watched that Titanic sink slowly.
Yeah. I think it's kind of strange that nobody brings up basketball because they had so many breaking losses.
Well,
And
I
that,
was thinking the Michigan State game was a candidate for me.
yeah, I mean, they lose to Northwestern on the road by 2. They lose to Ohio State, the ridiculous shot at the end of that game. They lose on the half court shot to Michigan State. They lose that Big Ten semifinal game on a layup, with like no time left. Yeah, they had some bad losses, but they weren't like monumental because that team found a way to bounce back, obviously, until it was over. And when it was over in more ways than one.
Yeah, I would say hmm, I'll say that for the end. Mason, what was the best Maryland game you saw this year?
That's a tough one. Best game.
I'll go for. I have an answer, which is one of the reasons I asked that one, but I'll let you ponder that. Um, and that's a hard one. But the one game that I truly thought was an just outstanding sporting event to watch, Mason, was the Women's Lacrosse Big Ten Championship game, which was Maryland
Yeah.
versus Northwestern,
Hmm.
where the Maryland goalie, whose name is escaping me right now, and I apologize to her because she played one of the best single lacrosse anythings I've ever seen. Northwestern was absolutely firing on the Terps in that game. She kept them in it by sheer force of will. Northwestern hits a goal close to end of regulation to seal the win on that one. That was a great one. The other game that I thought was very just entertaining, non-rev at that, was a Maryland versus Washington regular season men's soccer game, which was a not a well officiated match. In fact, one of the worst I saw this year, but a very entertaining game and a very well played one at that. But those are the two I'd say take the cake for me.
Yeah, I think the Big Ten semifinal basketball game against Michigan, while we did lose, was one of the better played games of this year. And then I gotta say, I think just like one of the better games um, that I got to go to, and what was more of a dominant Maryland one, was the game at Wisconsin. Just being, we haven't won a lot of games like that in environments like that, like Camp Randall, and to be there in person was really special. Was a really good win for the program, and then the next couple of months kind of have thrown that out the window. But it felt like you were really getting somewhere there. I thought the men's soccer game against Washington was excellent, um, and I think that Maryland beating the doors off Syracuse at Gillette was also great. Um, but it's really not been a great year. I mean, a lot of these
No,
close games we're talking about being on the wrong end of. You don't really walk away with championship. Your strong teams just weren't that great this year. But in a lot of ways, you have the big wins. The Quincy Wilson recruitment's a huge win for Maryland. Jordan Jackson, Baba, Zion Ely. Like, there's a lot of positivity right now. I think that we would be wrong if we didn't mention Jim Smith and his leadership and coming in with his group, and Joe LeBou, and Kirby just continuing to build things with guys from Maryland, kind of getting things back straightened out inside the athletic department. The attendance for football this year was excellent. I think that men's basketball, while not being even competitive, the crowds they've been bad for the really bad games. But I thought even Sunday, like, there's a good set of people there, considering this team really is not really going anywhere. But the work that they've done is really, really something. It shows you what can be done here to get this fan base where it needs to be in a lot of perspective. I think we're seeing the rewards of that right now on the football side. But overall, just not really a great year. Been some teams that were really disappointing, but a lot of positivity going forward, a lot of momentum building through the craziness, the madness that is college sports right now. But I'm thinking that we're going to see the results through leadership that come with the right people at the top.
yeah, you took the words out of my mouth there, actually, because I was going to kind of wrap it up in the same way. It was maybe a year marked by transition more than anything else, Mason. We saw the Damon Evans era come to an abrupt halt in March, and it looked kind of crappy there for a minute. It really did. And we'd be lying to say if it didn't that it got a ton better on the court, field, pitch, whatever you want to call it. But it seems like things are trending in the right direction going forward. Jim Smith really is the first athletic director, again, in my lifetime, that I feel like people really do have good things to say about. And he's brought with him a staff of people that really seem to care about the school and what's coming next. And Mason, Wayne, and I have been talking about a lot this week, actually, that, college sports is in a precarious position right now. And it's really hard to see where it's going to go from here. It can go a lot of different directions. A lot of them, to be honest, aren't too optimistic. But I feel like we have leadership in place that'll keep Maryland at least somewhat in the picture until things get straightened out and hopefully get straightened out for the better. A lot of the biggest wins this year, Mason's point, were in the recruiting area. I mean, Zion Ely, man, if you told me when he committed, what was that, over a year ago now, Mason, that he was actually going to sign at Maryland, I really would not believe you. I did not think we were going to land the plane on that one. Baba, one of the better recruits, arguably the best recruit in a Maryland sport we've seen, if it weren't for Quincy Wilson. And Jordan Jackson on the women's side really might be a transformational player and one of those women's basketball stars you keep hearing about these days that could change a program. So with all that in mind, Mason, you have to be optimistic going into next year. And, hope will improve. We did see a lot of highs this year, and hopefully we can see them going into the next calendar year. It's probably not going to come in basketball, but, lacrosse, men's or women's, maybe baseball will do something. I'm excited for the spring, and I'm really excited for the next year or so to see what will come for Maryland sports.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And just kind of wrapping, another year for us on the Terptalk side. Some great road trips, the Rose Bowl, Camp Randall, mainly on the football side, Foxborough for lacrosse, and just being able to keep on doing this as kind of things change in life, and being able to, Jordan, bring you back into the fold. It's been great being able to do the show again, and thankful for everybody that listens to it. Hope everybody had a great holiday season, and 2026, here we come.
Yeah, and we can't close it out, Mace, without shouting out our viewers, because this was far and away the best year in Terptalk history as far as YouTube viewership. We had several videos over 1,000 hits this year, a couple over 2,000 or 3,000, which consistently is uncharted territory for us. So we do appreciate everybody. We've gotten to meet a lot of our fans the last couple of years, and it's a privilege to get to do this and for people to care about what we're just spewing out here. So with that being said, stay safe. Happy New Year. Go Terps. Raise a glass at midnight. Hopefully we'll have a better Terp year in 2026.